Okay, seriously, what is happening? Are we actually having this conversation? After everything, after finally getting Jrue Holiday, the defensive anchor, the championship-tested guard, the guy who just helped solidify this team, the Boston Celtics, are thinking about trading him. Is this some kind of sick joke, or are we about to witness another seismic shift in Boston? Let's try to make sense of this madness. Welcome back, everyone, to the channel, your source of the latest and sometimes the most bewildering news from the world of basketball. And right now, all eyes are on the Boston Celtics, a team that seems perpetually caught between championship aspirations and, well, financial realities. The whispers out of Boston are getting louder, and they all point to one undeniable truth. The Celtics are determined to shed salary this offseason. That seems to be the only certainty in what promises to be a summer filled with speculation and potential upheaval. But who do they move? That's the multi-million-dollar question. And increasingly, the name that keeps surfacing, the player who seems like a pretty good bet to be on the move, is Jrue Holiday. Yes, that Jrue Holiday. The reason cited? His age, which is creeping up in NBA years, and perhaps more significantly, his contract. While invaluable on the court, that contract represents a significant chunk of change that the Celtics might feel compelled to offload to achieve their salary-shedding goals. It's a tough pill to swallow for fans who have seen the impact he's made, but the business side of the NBA is a harsh mistress. So, if the unthinkable happens, if Jrue Holiday is indeed traded away from Boston, the next logical and frankly urgent question becomes, who in the world replaces him? You can't just subtract a player of Holiday's caliber, a two-way force who impacts the game on both ends, and expect to contend without bringing someone significant back or promoting a player into a much larger role. The Celtics would need a viable option, someone who can step into that starting lineup next season, and ideally, for the years to come. Based on the current chatter and potential scenarios, here are 5 players who could realistically end up being good replacements for Jrue Holiday if the Celtics decide to pull the trigger on a trade. The prodigal son returns? Marcus Smart talk about a plot twist. Could we actually see Marcus Smart back in a Celtics uniform? The very player who was traded away to make room for Jrue Holiday in the first place could potentially be the guy who replaces him. It's almost poetic, in a slightly tragic, circles of the NBA kind of way. After being part of the trade that sent him to Memphis, Smart was reportedly moved again, this time to Washington. The biggest concern with Smart remains his health. He has continued to battle injuries, much like he did during parts of his initial tenure in Boston. The report suggests he's played in just 64 games over the last 2 seasons combined, which is a significant red flag for any team relying on him for consistent minutes. However, the appeal from Boston's perspective is clear. Smart is relatively inexpensive compared to Holiday. If the Celtics could orchestrate a complex 3-team trade, they might be able to bring back a fan favorite on the final year of his current contract. An expiring contract is gold when you're trying to shed salary, and bringing Marcus back, even for just 1 year, on a manageable deal, would certainly help them achieve that financial goal while potentially appeasing a fan base that still hold a lot of affection for former Defensive Player of the Year. The fit on the court is familiar, though his offensive limitations compared to Holiday are notable. But the defensive identity he brings is undeniable. The veteran stopgap? Mike Conley if the Celtics are purely focused on finding a short-term solution. A player on an expiring contract to bridge the gap, then Mike Conley's name enters the conversation. Conley is a seasoned veteran, a true professional, and a capable point guard who is slated to make a reasonable $10.4 million next season, the final year of his current deal. The report mentions that Conley could provide leadership, particularly in a hypothetical scenario where the Celtics might not have Jason Tatum available for a significant portion of the year. Note, this specific point about Tatum's availability seems speculative or based on a particular hypothetical scenario, as there's no current widespread report of Tatum missing most of next year. We'll discuss it as presented in the potential trade logic. Regardless of Tatum's status, a veteran presence like Conley could certainly help guide a team navigating changes. To make the numbers work in a trade for Conley, the Minnesota Timberwolves would likely need to include another piece to match salaries with Holiday's larger contract. However, it's also noted that Minnesota might be looking for an upgrade at the point guard position, which could make Holiday a desirable target for them. For Boston, Getting a competent, inexpensive option like Conley for just 1 year provides financial flexibility moving forward, even if his offensive game isn't quite at Holiday's level. He's a solid playmaker and can still knock down shots, offering a different look than Holiday. The superstar swing? Damian Lillard now. This is where things get interesting and potentially very risky. If the Celtics are thinking beyond just next season and are truly committed to being better in the 2026 to 27 season and beyond, a blockbuster move for Damian Lillard is floated as a possibility. This scenario would reportedly involve trading both Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis to acquire the superstar guard. The report suggests that Lillard's contract almost exactly matches the combined salaries of Holiday and Porzingis, making the financials of the trade feasible from a matching perspective. However, this move doesn't help the Celtics shed salary in the immediate term. In fact, Lillard's contract is massive and extends further out. The logic here is purely about acquiring a different caliber of star power, albeit one who is also getting older and has had injury concerns. The report mentions Lillard is also slated to miss most of next year with a torn Achilles. Again, the specific injury report for Lillard missing most of next year seems potentially outdated or part of the hypothetical trade scenario being discussed, not a current widespread report. We'll frame it as part of the trade speculation. Acquiring an injured superstar on a massive long-term deal who doesn't help with immediate salary relief and targets contention a couple of years down the line is a significant departure from the stated goal of winning now and shedding salary. This move feels like a complete pivot in strategy, prioritizing a future window over the immediate one, and it comes with substantial risk given Lillard's age and recent injury history mentioned in this hypothetical. It would fundamentally change the identity and timeline of the Celtics. The high price expiring? Fred VanVleet here is another option that focuses on the expiring contract angle. Though at a much higher price point initially, Fred VanVleet is set to make a substantial $44.8 million next season. Trading Holiday for VanVleet would initially increase Boston's salary, not decrease it. However, the appeal here is that VanVleet's contract is an expiring one. This means that after next season, his massive salary comes off the books, providing the Celtics with significant long-term cap flexibility. To make the trade work and actually help them shed salary this year, the Celtics would likely need to attach another smaller contract to Holiday in the trade package to send to Houston, where VanVleet currently plays. The potential fit with Houston is also interesting. The Rockets are reportedly looking for a point guard who is a better defender, a description that perfectly fits Jrue Holiday. So, there could be mutual interest in a Holiday for VanVleet swap, perhaps with other pieces involved to balance salaries and assets. For Boston, it's a painful 1-year salary spike in exchange for long-term financial freedom, bringing in a capable, albeit different style, of point guard for a single season. VanVleet is a score-first guard who can handle playmaking duties, but he doesn't bring the same defensive intensity as Holiday. The in-house solution? Peyton Pritchard, perhaps the most straightforward and in some ways the most logical replacement for Jrue Holiday, is already sitting on the Celtics bench. Peyton Pritchard. The report highlights that Pritchard could step up into a starting role and perform just fine. The biggest question mark surrounding Pritchard throughout his career has been his defense, particularly against starting caliber guards. However, the report notes that he has gotten much better defensively, which was always a key area he needed to improve to become a viable starter. Beyond his on-court development, Pritchard represents perhaps the best contract in the NBA in terms of value relative to production. He is under team control on a very team-friendly deal. Promoting him to the starting lineup provides a cost-effective solution that aligns perfectly with the Celtics' goal of shedding salary. While he doesn't bring the same defensive versatility or veteran leadership as Holiday, his improved defense, shooting, and energy could make him a surprisingly effective replacement, allowing the Celtics to allocate resources elsewhere. It's the clean, internal option that makes the most financial sense. So there you have it. 5 potential scenarios. 5 different players who could step into the massive shoes left by Jrue Holiday if the Boston Celtics decide that shedding salary is a higher priority than retaining their championship caliber guard. From a surprising reunion with Marcus Smart to a veteran rental in Mike Conley, a star-studded but risky pivot with Damian Lillard, a one-year financial hit for long-term gain with Fred VanVleet, or the cost-effective internal promotion of Peyton Pritchard. Each option presents a unique set of pros, cons, and complexities. The Celtics are in a precarious position. Try to balance contending now with planning for the future and managing their finances. Trading Jrue Holiday would be a difficult decision, one that would undoubtedly alter the team's identity. But if they do, these are the names you need to watch. All right, everyone, that's our breakdown of the potential Jrue Holiday replacements for the Boston Celtics. It's a situation that's got a lot of people talking, and I definitely want to hear what you think. Which of these players do you think will be the best replacement for Jrue Holiday? Are there other names you think the Celtics should consider? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. I read every single one, and your insights are always appreciated. And if you found this analysis helpful, if it gave you a clearer picture of the Celtics' difficult situation and potential moves, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Seriously, smashing that like button helps the channel immensely and lets me know you want more in-depth breakdowns like this. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be keeping a very close eye on all the Celtics' offseason moves. Don't miss the next update.